The Bellweather frequency. The rain didn't fall in Castle County that night. It came down in sheets of dark iron, flattening the hayfields along Route 17 and turning the ditches into frothing brown rivers. My name is Mara. I drive the late-night airport loop because the dark doesn't talk back, and the tips are usually enough to keep the engine in my '09 Civic from throwing a rod. But by 2:15 a.m. the sky had gone the color of a bruised liver, and my wiper blades were screaming against the windshield. That's when the Uber app did something it's never done before. The screen flickered, the GPS needle spinning like a compass over a magnet, and then a pickup notification popped up. No name, just a string of 7 zeros. The pickup location wasn't the airport terminal. It was a pin dropped right in the middle of old logging road, an access trail that had been blocked off by the state forestry department back when Jimmy Carter was still in the White House. I should have swiped decline. My gut told me to. It was that cold, greasy feeling we get right before you hydroplane. But the surge pricing was a beautiful, terrible thing. 7.5x match. That's rent money. That's grocery money for a month. I turned off the highway and headed into the dark. Act 1. The passenger under the bridge. The headlights of the Civic cut through the downpour, catching the concrete supports of the Interstate 95 overpass. She was standing right where the pin dropped, flat against the concrete piling. She didn't have an umbrella, and she wasn't wearing a jacket, just a faded yellow sundress that should have been plastered to her skin. But as I pulled closer, I realized something that made the hairs on my arms stand up like little copper wires. The rain was falling all around her, but her hair, long, dark, and parted down the middle, was perfectly dry. It bounced slightly in the draft of my car's heater as she opened the rear door and slid inside. "The Bellweather Motel," she said. Her voice didn't sound like it came from the back seat. It sounded like it was coming from inside my own dashboard speakers, flat and hollow, like an old cassette tape that had been left on a dashboard in July. "I don't think I know that one," I said, putting the car back in drive. "Lived here 24 years, hon. There's the red roof out by the interstate, and the shady pine cabin court, but..." "It's on the route," she said. She didn't look at me in the rearview mirror. She just stared straight ahead, at the rhythmic slap, slap, slap of the wipers. "Just keep driving, Mara. Don't stop unless the vacancy sign is on." I felt a cold drop of sweat roll down my spine. How did she know my name? I hadn't looked at the app since she got in. I reached down to tap my phone, but the screen was gone. Not dead, just filled with a bright, static gray that cast a sickly television glow over my fingers. Act 2. Rerouting. The radio didn't static out. It shifted. The classic rock station I'd been listening to faded away, replaced by the mechanical synthesized voice of the National Weather Service. But it wasn't warning us about the thunderstorm. The search continues for 8-year-old Toby Miller, last seen at the Route 17 rest stop in August of 1984. Residents are advised to look for a red windbreaker. "Hey," I said, my hand shaking as I reached for the volume knob. "What is this? This is old. This happened when I was a kid." The radio didn't turn off. The knob just spun loosely in my fingers. Found today was the vehicle of Sarah Vance, empty on the shoulder of mile marker 42. No signs of foul play. The trees beside the road began to change. They weren't the scrub pines of southern Maine anymore. They were taller, darker, crowding the asphalt until the branches met overhead, creating a tunnel of wet leaves that blocked out even the lightning. "We're lost," I said, hitting the brakes. The Civic skidded, the tires hydroplaning for a terrifying second before catching the gravel shoulder. I'm turning around. I'm taking you back to the terminal. You can't turn around, the girl in the back seat said. Her voice was very quiet now, very close. Look behind you. I looked into the rearview mirror. There wasn't a road behind us. There was only a wall of gray water, an impenetrable deluge that seemed to swallow the asphalt 3 feet past my rear bumper. The red glow of my taillights didn't reflect off anything. It just bled into a total, heavy void. The Bellweather only has one driveway, she whispered, and we're in it. Act 3. The room with every light on. Then came the neon. It burst through the rain like an open wound, a buzzing electric blue that read the Bellweather. Beneath it, a smaller pink sign flickered with a sound like a dying bug. Vacancy. The motel was a long, low, U-shaped building made of waterlogged gray cinder blocks. The parking lot wasn't empty. It was packed with cars, but none of them belonged in 2026. There was a rusted Ford Pinto with flat tires, a pristine 1963 Chevy Impala with the driver's side door flung wide open to the rain, a cross-country semi-truck with the engine idling in a low, wet rumble, though there was no exhaust coming from the pipe. But it was the windows. Every single room had its light on, not the warm yellow of a bedside lamp, but the harsh, cold glare of an interrogation room. And behind every pane of glass, someone was standing. In room 3, a little boy in a red windbreaker was pressing his palms against the screen, his face white and tight. Beside the ice machine, a man in a grease-stained trucker's flannel stood perfectly still. He didn't have a face. Where his features should have been, there was only a smooth, pink expanse of skin, like an egg that had been dropped in the dirt. "Oh God," I choked out, my hands locking onto the steering wheel until my knuckles turned the color of lard. "Oh God, those are the people from the radio. Those are the ones who went missing." "They aren't missing," the girl said, her hand reaching over the seat to touch my shoulder. Her fingers were ice cold. They didn't feel like flesh. They felt like meat that had been sitting in the back of a freezer for a year. "They're just checked in. The twist, the logbook. Get out," I screamed, shoving my door open. The rain hit me, but it didn't feel like water. It felt heavy like oil, sticking to my skin and my clothes. "Get out of my car." The girl didn't move. She just pointed toward the front office. The door to the lobby was made of glass, and through it I could see the night clerk's desk. There was a corkboard on the wall behind it, pinned full of old yellowing papers. I couldn't help it. It was like being pulled by a winch. My feet moved across the wet asphalt, through the puddles that didn't reflect the sky, but instead showed images of faces twisting in agony beneath the surface. I stepped into the lobby. The air smelled of old carpets, wet wool, and copper. On the corkboard was a missing person flyer. It had a photo of a girl with a tired smile, wearing an Uber lanyard around her neck, standing next to a silver '09 Civic. The name on the flyer was Mara Higgins. The date of disappearance was printed in bold black ink, May 26th, 2026. "That's tomorrow," my brain screamed. "That's tomorrow morning. The climax, the return fare." "I told you," the girl said, appearing in the doorway behind me. She wasn't wet. She looked almost human now, the color returning to her cheeks as the blue neon light bathed her skin. "I wasn't trying to check in, Mara." She reached out and took the keys right out of my hand. Her fingers were warm now. My fingers were the ones growing numb. "The Bellweather is like a scale," she said, her voice dropping into a gentle, terrible cadence. "It doesn't like to be unbalanced. It only exists when the storm is heavy enough to blur the line between what's here and what's gone, and it never lets someone leave unless they bring a replacement. No, I whispered. I tried to lunge for her, but my legs felt heavy, like they were sinking into wet cement. I looked down at my hands. They were turning gray. The skin was smoothing out, the lines of my knuckles fading away like ink under bleach. "Thank you for the ride," she said. She turned and walked back out into the rain, hitting the unlock button on my key fob. The Civic's lights flashed twice. She got into the driver's seat. She started the engine. The terminal. I ran to the glass door, hammering my fists against it, but there was no sound. The glass didn't rattle. I watched the silver Civic back out of the lot, its tires splashing through the oil-slick puddles. As the car reached the edge of the neon light, the rain suddenly stopped. The clouds broke, and the first pale orange fingers of dawn cut through the trees. The Bellweather Motel didn't vanish with a bang. It just dissolved. The walls turned into mist. The parking lot became a field of wet chicory, and the cold fluorescent lights became the morning sun. But I wasn't in the field. I was standing in a hallway that stretched out forever, lined with brown vinyl doors, every single one of them cracked open just an inch. Somewhere out there on a highway that doesn't exist anymore, a phone is sitting on a dashboard. The screen is gray, but if you look close enough through the static, you can see the app is still running. It has one permanent destination saved. It's been searching for a driver for a long, long time. Detour ahead. Bellweather Motel reservation confirmed.